Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
It has been noticed that even people who claim everything is predetermined and that we can do nothing to change it, they look before they cross the road. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on a Thursday. Good morning, good morning. That lovely lady, Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning. Welcome to Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers, like Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Right now, let's get our Pledge of Allegiance person on for this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You...
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wheels, good job, buddy. I'm proud of you. Thank you very much. It's time for the weather. And the weather is brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. I'm telling you, they are so sharp at home design, at home decoration and decor. I mean, why don't you? If you want to make some changes, wow, do they know that industry? Whatever you need to make your house a home. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Right now, here comes Gina with the weather.
Here's your weather forecast for this January 7th as we do move closer to the weekend. And it looks like my chance of afternoon snow showers for today, about a 40% chance. Humidity sitting about 91%. Winds out of the northwest right around 7 miles an hour. Expect a high of 33. Tonight, low of 26. Tomorrow, morning snow showers are going to continue. Winds out of the west right around 10 miles an hour. High of 30 with an overnight low of 23. Partly cloudy and 29 for Saturday and Sunday. Cloudy and 30. And that's your weather. Have a good one.
Gina, thank you very much. Excellent job. And brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. And I tell you, these folks are so sharp. You want to beautify your home, you want to change things up, you want to really have the best of carpet and flooring, you call them. Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Stop in, look for the blue door at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Right now, let's sell some cattle. Merv May, come on in here. How are you?
All right. Good set of steer calves there. $30.30. One going to 30. One going to 32.
Oh, that's the chant of my buddy, the world's best auctioneer, Merv May, over at the Burley Livestock Sale Yard, 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. And the number to call for consignment information, sale information, 678-9411. The sale that works for you. Merv May, Kate Rogge, and Lance Udy. And the big sale today will be starting at 10:30 a.m. Here's a partial list of what they know is coming through the doors this morning. And Connor Kent over to Tremont is bringing in 40 head of calves. Jared Schrank of Declo, 30 head of wean calves. Oakley Valley Dairy is bringing in 105 head of cows. Cody Beck, Golden Valley, is bringing in a semi-load of cows. And Acme Dairy at Oakley bringing in some butcher cows this morning, along with a good trailer line run at the Burley Livestock Sale Yard. Sale time 10:30 this morning at 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. Merv, sell those steers.
All right. I get set of steer calves here to get $1.30, 1 and a half, 30, 1 and a half, 32, 2 and a half, 3 and a half, 134, 4 and a half, 5 and a half, 5 and a half, 130, 550, 135 and a half, $7.35. Zeb Bell gets bottom again.
I'll take that money. I'll take that money. Good morning, everybody. By the way, I mentioned yesterday numerous times, and I'll do it again today, a fire destroyed the home of a good friend of ours. And they lost everything. And that's Jim Coleman, south of Hazleton. And they need help. They need clothing. They need furniture. They need, naturally, money donated to an account. And there's a gentleman that's kind of heading everything up, and God bless him, Gene Brown. And the number to call, 731-9018. Or you can send your donations to the American Legion Post 82, 401 Brooks Avenue in Hazleton. And updates on what is needed for the family will be on the City of Hazleton Facebook page. Really nice people. And anybody that goes through that kind of a trial and tribulation, God bless them, and we'll do all we can to help them. Don't forget, I am looking forward to the next lunch bunch, going to be held on January 21st at Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. I said yesterday, and I had a call after the program was over, and they said, I didn't know these folks, and they said, wow, we went into Denny's, and the food was phenomenal. They loved it. You will, too. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Anytime you're hungry at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, and their other location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. And don't forget, our next lunch bunch will be on January 21st. I'm going to gather things up here a little bit this morning and condense them because we're going to have a little change this first hour. I have a lady coming on the air at 8:30 sharp this morning. We're supposed to give her a call, and she writes for the Daily Signal, and she's back in Washington, D.C. Her name is Melissa Quinn, and she's going to give us her take on what's going on over in Burns, Oregon with the protest, etc., and we're going to see what she has to say. So I want to remind you, too, about Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-0459. They have all your heating and electrical needs. They open the doors at 7:30 in the morning till 5, Monday through Friday, and you stop in or give them a call. They'll have your order waiting for you on the counter. Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide always warm winters and cool summers. Let's take a look here. I got some updates I want to take care of real quick. Dear friend Randy called yesterday. And Randy, if you're listening, I appreciate the heads up on this. I can't, no talk show host can, possibly keep up on every single news story, every single happening that's going on 24/7, 365. I do my best, and thanks to my lovely bride, boy, she does a phenomenal job of pulling off the pertinent information and making sure I have it. I did talk to Carrie Kupek earlier this morning with Alliance Defending Freedom. I caught her on her way to her Washington, D.C. office, and it is true that the bank accounts, the private bank accounts for the cake company up in Washington that didn't want to go along with the gay weddings, and the gays came after this business and said, you'll do it our way or we're going to run you out of business. Well, it looks like they did. The money in private bank accounts has been seized. The families lost all their money. I'm getting an update on this with the lawyers on the scene. Hopefully I'll have it before the end of the program this morning. But, here's the thing. If you don't accept and embrace the gay lifestyle in this country, they will ruin you. That's their approach. And it makes it even more, what's the word I'm looking for, insidious for me to stand up and fight against them. And we must. We absolutely must. The left and their intolerance for us that are conservatives, their absolute hatred for churches, their absolute hatred for Christianity is starting to just go to a boiling point. And I'm going to fight back. I hope you'll stand with me. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to also remind you about our friends over at Mini-Cassia Sales. Hello, Zach. I think a lot of this family. They are sharp, and nice people. And at Mini-Cassia Sales, they've got all your lumber packages. Maybe you're planning on doing some remodeling. Maybe you're going to be putting a new roof on. Maybe you're going to be putting in some new energy-efficient windows. They've got the Western windows. They've got it all for you over there at Mini-Cassia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. And they sponsor every Tuesdays at 10:06, Dr. History. Thank you so much for all that you do. You know, I don't know if you caught this morning. Just a few moments ago during the 8 o'clock CBS News. And I know to many of you it might be nitpicking, but it's not to me. And this program is based on my opinion, based on facts of the stories, not speculation, but facts of the stories. I'm very, very strong on that. I will base my opinion based on the facts. Now, that story they had about the knife-wielding Muslim terrorist over in Paris, France, he did not stay. I want to get very implicit that we have to stay with the facts. This Muslim terrorist did not stand out on the street and yell, "God is great." He yelled, "Allah, Allah Akbar." Now, a lot of you might say, well, gee, what's the difference in the translation? The difference is this: Allah and God, two completely separate entities and beings. I will not have the news media, I will not have anybody cross the lines and say that Allah and God are the same. And some have even written that locally in the trash paper, pardon me, the newspaper. And I won't accept that. I don't think any of us should. The media distorts what is happening in deference to aid and abet, I think, the Muslim cause in this country. You don't like it? You don't agree with me? That's my opinion. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I really would appreciate your calls. That's what a talk show is all about. So put down the coffee, the toast, the hot chocolate, whatever, give me a call. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Yes, in case you're inquiring and wondering, I have an appointment to start next week on my hip and knee and shoulders and everything else. I'm going to pot. Anyway, all their physical therapists are excellent, and they know all the exercises, all the sports medicine. They've got the only hydrotherapy pool in the area. It is really good. They can help you get back to being you. All you have to do is call them, 678-1191. Make an appointment. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, serving you. All right, let's ring that line, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want you to stop right now. If you're shaving, or you ladies are curling your hair, or maybe having that second cup before you head out the door, take a deep breath, and let's just think about where we are right now. We've got some very, very serious situations going on. I honestly think more so than ever before in our history. Let's just go down a short list, and there's many more, many more. North Korea, with that chubby little, very obstinate, unruly fat man, has vowed to detonate any and all bombs and missiles eventually to send them over to our west coast or anywhere else and kill us. Iran is laughing at us, literally. And very soon, because of a absolutely worthless piece of paper called a negotiation treaty and or agreement, whatever you want to call it, they will have the capability of holding the entire world hostage with nuclear weapons. This morning, Saudi Arabia sent a missile over to Iran. And now this is just starting more of the fires burning over there. They're on the edge. The Mideast is on the brink of all-out war. Syria, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, burning fires. ISIS has a terrorist university. Did you hear about this? I've got the complete breakdown on this. Thanks to a friend of mine back east in Washington with a Daily Caller, Jonah Bennett, wrote this. And ISIS now has a jihadi university. I am not making this up, folks. I don't make anything up on this program. They have a terrorist university to teach bombing, killing, mayhem, maiming, and it's online. And they've got scientists working for them to develop new missiles, new bombs, new ways to kill people. How sick is this world? And the stupidity and the lack of leadership by Obama just continues to grow bigger each and every day. The two terrorists that were released yesterday from Gitmo, these are really good Boy Scout material. Both of them have vowed that their main mission in life is to cut the throats of Americans. Now I'm sitting here, and I'm wondering, and I feel like I'm fairly well-read, well-versed, and well-educated. Why? Why are we letting these worthless pieces of flesh out of prison so they can congregate with other worthless pieces of flesh and come up with insidious and killing ways to hurt, maim, and bomb people and just be a destructive force of society? Why let them go? I just don't have the answers. And I ask you, the audience, come on, bail in on this. What happened to our journalistic value in this country to where when they have a press conference, caller, I'll be right there, I promise, when they have a press conference, that none of the journalists, male or female, sitting in front of the White House spokesman, or in the case of a presidential press conference, why don't they have the backbone and the spine to ask these questions? And I'll give you the answer for that. They're afraid that if they ask once, they'll never be asked again, and they'll lose their standing in the White House press corps. They're cowards. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. For one thing, I think, is the releasing him as part of a bargain, as part of a deal that our person in the White House, I wouldn't call him a leader because he lacks in every leadership skill that I can think of, as part of a bargain somewhere along the lines that we didn't happen to find out about because we were too busy watching one hand while the other hand dealt under the table.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it, I wanted to call in yesterday morning. You're talking about the free handouts, and this ties in with this morning with the problems you're talking about in the world. Instead of free government cell phones, I really honestly think that there ought to be free, not necessarily free, but the government ought to issue out to citizens, and I'm talking valid citizens, people who were born here, who has a Social Security card, or who are benefit to the United States, ought to be issued a firearm with so many rounds and required so many days at a locally certified firing range with trained people to learn how to use firearms, protect yourself. They do this in Sweden. And you know that Sweden never gets picked on.
Yeah, but you know,
they don't, it would really put a lot of peace to a lot of people's mind, and a lot of this stuff wouldn't happen.
I agree with you, Riley, in the basis of your theory. but I don't deal in basis of theories or speculation. And I'm not degrading what you just said. I agree with it. I like the idea. But right now today, with this administration, we got to deal with facts. And what you just said ain't ever going to happen, Podna. And so I have to deal with the facts. I know, hang on just a minute. It would be nice to promote that, but right now we've got to deal with what we have. In other words, if you're playing a poker game and you draw nothing but threes and deuces and sixes, you don't want to try to jump the pot. And I'll guarantee you we have a mess with this administration. We have a Lieutenant General, Michael Flynn, that absolutely yesterday threw his hands up in the air during an interview and said, we have a complete void in leadership. And from a military general, that's very scary.
It is, and when your dealer you're playing cards with starts dealing off the bottom and saying, oh, no, that's how we play now. We changed the rules. It's time that you tell that dealer, you need to get the heck out of here, or we're going to go find a new game.
I agree with you.
And, it's really hard to do, but, I'm sure hoping that with this next election that we don't get duped out of a good president.
I hope you're right. Keep that optimism, my young friend. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your call. God bless.
Have a good day.
When you look at the situation of the world, and I'm not trying to be a depressant to you this morning, I'm trying to be a realist. And I hope you are too. But Rome is burning, figuratively, and Obama can't even play the fiddle. He's totally inept. We talk about that television program on TV where they have that weight loss, The Biggest Loser. We've got the biggest loser ever in the White House and his administration. A group of clowns looking for a car to go to the next circus. Absolutely ridiculous. Calls welcome 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't leave me hanging. Barry Equipment and Rental. Hello, Barry Equipment and Rental. They have all the equipment necessary to get the job done right. I mean, hey, man, they've got a special going right now. They're getting ready to cycle out a bunch of the rental fleet of the Bobcats, and they will also be selling off a lot of their used Coyote tractors. And great financing options are available, and you'd better check it out. If I were you, I'd be getting a hold of them today. Barry Equipment and Rental, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln in Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Barry Equipment and Rental. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. You would think that the people who are running the Republican Party would be behind the person that's most able to win the White House back in 2016, but instead we've had all this backbiting and all this hatred and all this backstabbing and everything to put Donald Trump down.
Tony, I'm just going to say this real quick because I've got another guest coming on here in a minute, but I think you're right. I'm fed up with this little, like kindergartners. And, that's my toy. No, it's not. My mommy gave it to me. I'm going to play with it. This kind of idiocy is going on in the party right now. It's not doing anybody any good. And quite frankly, I would like to see all the barrels pointed at the Democrats right now and go after Hillary. She may not be around come election time because of a felony. She may be arrested. One can only hope. But I agree with you. They've got to stop the infighting and go for the juggler and put whoever's on top, push them through, buddy. Push them through.
Yes, we need it. Need it bad.
All right. God bless you, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Tony, good friend. I'm sick of the infighting and the little personal daggers. It's like throwing plastic knives at each other at a picnic. How dumb can you get? Let's not forget our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Hello, Dr. Christine Pickup. How are you? I have got to remember, my mind sometimes does not function well, and I keep forgetting to call her. I've said that every day this week. I've got to call her after this program. And you should call her, too. If you're suffering any kind of hearing loss, hey, you'd better make an appointment for a hearing screening. Call her at 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. They're right across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room, waiting to serve you. 312-0957. Let's check with Wheels. Do we have our guest on the phone?
Yes, sir.
You know what, Wheels? You're just doing a darn good job this morning. Thank you for that.
you.
All right, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, I've never had this lady on my program, and I'm interested to hear her take as to what's going on up in Oregon. Melissa Quinn, good morning. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm great. I guess first and foremost, who are you? What do you represent? And give us a little background on you.
I am one of the reporters for the Daily Signal, which is a multimedia news organization. We're based out in Washington, D.C. I previously worked at Red Alert Politics, which is an online news organization for millennials, and before that was a general assignment reporter for the Alexandria Times, very small hyper-local newspaper in Alexandria, Virginia.
All right. Melissa, why are you involved, or why did you want to get involved in what's happening out in Burns, Oregon?
Well, I had been reading about the standoff that's been going on for the last few days, and one of the things that I was very interested in learning was how federal law enforcement was going to respond. We have heard so many awful things about what happened in the early 90s in Waco and Ruby Ridge, and I really wanted to figure out from former federal law enforcement officials what the American public can expect to see from agents with the FBI, the U.S. Marshal, and any other agency that may be involved in the response.
You know, and I know that you had quite a few. I read your article. It was very well written, by the way. And Clint Van Zandt, the FBI's former chief hostage negotiator, had a quote in there. The FBI has learned some very painful lessons during the time period that he was there, and otherwise very painful lessons on the need to negotiate until the cows come back home, especially on grazing land. This sounds like the FBI learned some valuable lessons of basically don't shoot first. Let's see if we can't use the blowhorn and negotiate a little bit, right?
Yes, exactly. And Clint Van Zandt actually told me that he learned some very valuable lessons from standoffs in the 1980s that he was involved in, and he was disappointed to see in the early 90s that the FBI didn't use their negotiators, the negotiators that they had at their disposal, who, like him, are very well trained and very good at their jobs. I don't think anyone disagrees with the fact that the government was very aggressive in their responses in the incidents in the 90s, and he said that this is now over a decade later, and he feels very confident from what he has been seeing that the FBI has learned their lessons, the government has learned their lessons, and they are going to use those negotiations and the negotiators that they have at their disposal to make sure that they bring what's going on to a peaceful resolution. Now, he couldn't confirm, obviously, because he's not directly involved, if the FBI is currently negotiating, if they have been, talking to these protesters through phone or email or some sort of a third party. But from his experience, he said he feels it's likely that they are.
Let me go back to square one with you, Melissa. And on this program, I only deal in facts, as I said just a little bit ago, not speculation, ever. What do you know about the general formation of this problem? What are your concepts of that as not only a journalist, but also somebody that writes for a press periodical?
In terms of what's going on?
Yeah, what do you think caused it? Was it justified? What do you know about the basics of the problem as to why we've got to write about the FBI in the first place?
Well, from my understanding is that we saw some very painful standoffs occur in the early 90s, and as Mr. Van Zandt referenced, in the late 1980s that he was involved in, which I don't know as much about, I should say, were very frustrating to the American people, to the parties that were involved. We saw a massive loss of lives in both of those incidents, and they were cases where I don't think anyone disagrees, where the government acted with unnecessary force and aggression, judging from multiple interviews, congressional investigations that took place after, and now this is the FBI's chance, and they are using this opportunity to show that they have learned from what happened then.
Well, I understand that part of it, but I think my question was not heard correctly. What I'm saying is, how much do you know about the basics of what happened up there as to why the FBI had to be called in the first place? What I'm trying to get at is, I don't think the news media has done enough of a job to really study the pros and cons and the whys and the what-fors as to what happened up there with the Hammond family, what happened with the fire, what happened with the prison sentences. I don't think they've really delved into this as to why it's become such a standoff today.
Oh, no. I mean, I think I've interviewed multiple people about this, and there does seem to be a lot of concern in terms of the sentence that they received in October. I think the Justice Department went ahead and told them that, and told the Hammonds that they needed to report to prison on Monday. We saw back in 2012 a federal judge who had originally oversaw the case and the sentencing say that he didn't think that 5 years was an appropriate amount of time, really didn't fit the crime. And he went ahead and he sentenced both the father and the son to 3 months and a year, respectively. And then we saw the Justice Department back in October go ahead and essentially re-sentence this family, the father and the son, to the 5 years that was required under the anti-terrorism law that they were charged under. I've spoken with members of Congress about this, and they say that this has sparked a much-needed discussion about mandatory minimums and whether the punishment really fits the crime.
Yeah, but let me ask you one thing. You're not a lawyer, nor am I. Maybe you are. You didn't have that on your resume. But you can't tell me, and nobody can tell me, that this should be legal as a double jeopardy case. They were tried, supposedly, they were convicted, and they were sentenced. And they paid their debt to society, and then they get out and they're retried on the same crime because a judge doesn't think that was enough of a punishment. You know as well as I do, Melissa, that's double jeopardy, and it should have been thrown out initially by all the lawyers.
Well, I can't speak to my own personal opinion, but I can tell you that the very issue that you're referring to, not only double jeopardy, but also the issue of mandatory minimums, is something that is on people's minds. People are wondering how our current justice system, how this is allowed under the Constitution, and it has sparked, according to some of the lawmakers and emails that I'm getting from readers, it sparked a discussion that some people say really needed to be had, and this, what's going on in Oregon, has certainly thrust that into the spotlight.
You know, I will say this, Melissa, and caller, we have a caller with a comment. I'll have them stand by just for a moment. I am very, very concerned, Melissa, and I think you probably are too, for the research that you've put into this article. All it's going to take is one slip-up, whether it's from the FBI, whether it's from the county sheriff's department, whomever, or the side of the protesters. It's going to take one slip-up, and this could escalate immediately into a tragedy. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and the former federal law enforcement officers that I spoke with are very well aware of what could happen if the FBI shoots first and if the protesters shoot first, and both parties have made comments along the lines of they understand the repercussions that could happen as well. And it seems like from the public comments that they made that both sides, law enforcement as well as the protesters, really want to resolve everything peacefully.
Caller, go ahead with your comment for Melissa, if you would, please. Go ahead.
Yes, now on the double jeopardy, the district court judge in Oregon is the one who gave him 3 months and a year. The federal prosecutor appealed it, won the appeal, and appealed it to the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco, and that was a different judge, an Ann Aiken. And does that have any effect on double jeopardy? I'll hang up.
You know, Melissa, respond to that, and then I'll have my own personal comment on that. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm not a legal scholar, as we very well have established. But the one thing I can say about this is that this has certainly sparked a discussion both on that issue as well as the issue of mandatory minimums. And I think that the answer to that question is going to be something that we'll have to see play out. I'm happy, myself and other reporters with the Daily Signal are happy to explore the answer to that question, potentially in follow-up articles. But it is something that a lot of people are wondering.
Well, why have a ruling? I'll make this very simplified, and I'm not going to get into the legal do's and don'ts, but why have a ruling by a court case and a judge that is going to be accepted and then down the road have it overturned and have, like I said earlier, the double jeopardy applied? This is insanity. And I know the family. I know a lot of what they've done in the community. I know many of their friends and neighbors. It's not that far from me, and I've traveled all over that area, and this thing is an escalation of a problem that if it's taken out of hand right now by the protesters or the FBI, I don't think it can be stopped, and I'm very concerned, Melissa. I'm more than concerned.
And I think you have a right to be, and I think that the concerns that you have are shared by a lot of people across the country, specifically in Oregon, concentrated in the West, and especially with members of Congress who are watching this unfold. Absolutely. Caller, quickly, I'm almost out of time in this segment. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. Well, it seems to me like there's a bigger picture here, and of course it's all about confiscation of the land and part of the Agenda 21, but I would like to have a comment about the kangaroo court. Initially, the jurors would not give an information about what the sentencing would be. And so forth. So they didn't realize they thought they'd get a slap on the wrist instead of 5 years in prison.
All right, well, we'll have her jump in on that. Thank you, caller. Appreciate it.
Part of her, the peers, they were people from the city that had no understanding of ranching and the situation. So I'd like to comment on that.
Melissa, go ahead real quick on a comment if you feel comfortable with that. It's somewhat of a legal answer, but go ahead if you would, please.
Well, I haven't read up on the specifics, gone back through and read the specifics from the actual trial court, but I can just say what I've said repeatedly, which is that all of these concerns, all of these questions, all of these issues, they're not lost on, obviously, the American people. They're certainly not lost on the public officials in Congress, and it has sparked what many believe is a much-needed discussion.
You know, I agree with that, and here's what I'd like you to do, because, number one, you have a very good voice on the radio, and you're very articulate, and you're sharp. I would like you to do more perusing and study into this issue, because here's what I'm finding, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong. At the various news networks, whether it's CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, it doesn't make any difference. They don't seem to have an understanding and an appreciation for people that make their living from the land and the assets that God gave us. And there's almost a snickering mentality if we wear cowboy hats and boots. You know, they're always kind of chiding us and things like that. I think that people need to have a more on-the-ground approach to understand what's really going on in our country and out in the country, and that's why we need good reporters like you to do the studies.
Well, thank you so much, and it's funny, I actually just spoke with Louis Gomer yesterday about this very issue, and he said that this goes beyond the criminal justice issues that we're seeing. It also goes to the land use, the government's growing control of land that he said is needed for many people to make a living, to feed their families, and boost local economies.
You know, and please, if you don't mind, Melissa, and you did a wonderful job on this morning, but I really do want to stay in touch with you on behalf of the program that I own and have you back after you do some more study on this, because I don't think the people in the West in general are getting a fair shake and a fair shot with the media nationwide that's based out of New York, Washington, D.C., etc. And I think we need somebody like you to really have an in-depth approach as to what really happens out here.
Well, I can promise you that I will do my best, and I am following the story, both what happened with the Hammonds specifically and their sentencing, as well as the protests that are going on very closely. And I can promise you that I will be in touch with you, and I hope you'll take my call. Well, thank you so much. I will. All right. God bless, Melissa. Thanks for being on here. Thank you. All right. Melissa Quinn, and she did a really good job on this article and writing for the Daily Signal, but I'm going to put this all together and make sure that we have her back after she does some more research. You know, I got to tell you real quick before I did the weather. These Eastern three-piece suits and wingtip shoes, they can do and act as they wish. They can dress and have their comments and everything, freedom of speech. But when they do it in a kind of a deriding manner, to the point where when they talk about a story out west and they talk about the people that wear the Western hats and the boots and everything, it's almost like, oh, those crazy cowboys. And I'm really, really hot and offended over that. You should be too. It's a part of our nation's history. It's a part of our nation's heritage.
And it's a part of how the West makes a living. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go.
Hi, Ted. Maybe you can correct me, but my understanding of up there in Oregon is that the Hammonds were burning on their own ground, and it got away from them and got on BLM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because what frosts me is every news thing that I've listened to, they say they set fire on BLM ground.
Yeah.
That's even K-Bar Radio's news girl that's reporting after the CBS News. That's what she's been saying every day when she reports about it, that they set fire to BLM ground. And that just ticks me off.
Well, let me jump in and say something. Let me jump in and say something real quick on that. The biggest problem we have, and I'm just going to encompass the entire news media. Okay? It's so easy to go and pull something off the wire service from the Associated Press or whatever and sit down and read it. And quite frankly, that's why I absolutely am so violently against people that are in the news that call themselves journalists that don't do any private and personal in-depth investigation as to what's really going on. And when you read something off a wire service,
it just frosts me when you hear people give the news and they don't have the story straight.
All it takes.
Go investigate. Do your research, for pity's sake. You got the whole internet at your disposal.
Well, and not trust the internet. Wait a minute. Whoa. We're talking over each other. Don't hang up. Okay. Listen to me just a minute. Don't trust the internet ever. Don't ever trust the internet. But here's what I do trust. And here, wait a minute, we can't talk over each other. What we have to do is take the time and the effort to talk to people that are on the ground, talk to people that are at the scene, talk to people that are involved. And that's why basically the news media is too damn lazy to get the job done right.
Exactly, but if they would have researched when they were arrested and what had really happened, then they would know the truth.
Yeah.
And, it's word of mouth. And you know what happens with word of mouth after it goes past about two people.
Absolutely.
The story changes.
I agree with you. Thank you so much for your call. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I just really get upset, and I appreciate what that lady just said. I get up at 3:45 in the morning. I'm not trying to build myself out to be some angelic host here this morning. I'm just telling you the straight truth. Caller, stand by. I get up at 3:45 in the morning, and my lovely bride and I are in this office at 4:30 in the morning, and we are checking out the positives and the negatives of all the stories that I put on the air. I'm not going to rely on some stupid internet story. I'm not going to rely on some stupid AP story. I'm going to find the people that are mentioned, call them. There are ways to get a hold of them and get the news and the facts directly. Caller, real fast. I'm running late. Go ahead.
I know, Zeb. I know. There's more to this than people are even realizing. This goes back a long time, and it has to deal with the government taking away grazing rights and water rights, not only for the Hammonds, but for many others.
That's right.
I lived there. I was neighbors to them, ran in that country, ranched in that country for many, many years. And I'm in contact with my friends ranchers and the sheriff's department, both up there right now. And this is all deep, and they wish Bundy would go home. He's there on their own agenda. They're not doing a bit of good. And what about the Alliance Defending Freedom? Is that something they might do?
I'm not at liberty this morning, Adrian, to say too much about that. I will say this, that I have discussed that with them, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Is there a phone number I can talk to you later and ask if there's a number to call them?
Yeah, my cell phone number you can call anytime at 312-2976.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Caller, go ahead quickly, and then I've got to get a weather forecast on in here.
Okay, Zeb, isn't it normal to burn fields on farms and in pastures? So what's the problem?
Well, wait a minute. What you're saying is, there was a backfire to stop a fire from coming onto their personal property, and we've had the same circumstances happen here to where a fire's going to possibly burn up private property, and the rancher and the farmer and the homeowner, my goodness, they'll do anything to protect their property, and we've already seen here locally even I'll call it thuggery. I don't care if somebody gets upset. Oh, you can't do that. You can't go on federal land. Listen, if I had my property, my barn, my corrals, my livestock, my horses, and my home, you can darn sure bet I'm going to do anything and everything I can to protect my property.
Oh, this is just a miscarriage of justice.
All right, Tony, God bless. Thank you. Caller, I'm going to ask your indulgence. I got to get the weather on, and I'm going to ask you to stay on the line. I'll be right there. Stand by. Don't forget the weather brought to you this hour by Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert with the lovely Nicole and all the staff over there. Believe me, all the business opportunities to promote your business, whether it is the awards and the trophies for the year end, whether it is writing instruments with all the pens and the pencils, or maybe it's the jackets and the caps, whatever, they do a first-class job, the best, at Mad River Laser, 502 East Street in Rupert. Caller, go ahead. Not caller. May we have the weather wheels. Thank you.
Here's your weather forecast for this January 7th as we do move closer to the weekend. And it looks like my chance of afternoon snow showers for today, about a 40% chance. Humidity sitting at about 91%. Winds out of the northwest right around 7 miles an hour. Expect a high of 33. Tonight, low of 26. Tomorrow, morning snow showers are going to continue. Winds out of the west right around 10 miles an hour. High of 30 with an overnight low of 23. Partly cloudy and 29 for Saturday and Sunday. Cloudy and 30. That's your weather. Have a good one.
Thank you, Gina. Brought to everybody by Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Sorry to keep you waiting. Caller, go ahead, please.
Zeb, this reminds me of a long time ago. I was a very, very, very young boy at the time. The government, BLM, did some spraying on some sagebrush, and I think it's out north. I could be wrong. And it was adjacent to some private property that was owned by a farmer, several farmers who had sugar beets and what have you, and it killed their crop. And I do remember hearing stories about these farmers who got paid minimal to replace the crop that they had lost, and it caused some of them to go bankrupt, and it was really detrimental to them. But nothing was ever pursued other than a little small compensation. And to have a farmer who a fire accidentally gets away while trying to take care of his land, and they throw him in prison and take away their land, it's really hypocritical and one-sided, as government normally is. But anyway, that's my thought.
All right, I appreciate you calling back on that. And yes, that has happened many, many times. My take on this whole thing is, and I've asked a lot of the powers that be that are involved in this story, whether it's Lavoy Finicum that was on our program the other day, and others up in the area, this thing to me, it just reeks of just overpower. Why couldn't this have been handled with a fine situation, monetarily? But when we're talking about jail sentences, and we're talking about a 70-plus-year-old man having to go to prison for 5 years, might never come out and see his family again in the freedom of his ranch or his area. I mean, we're talking some pretty heavy stuff here. And it seems like pretty heavy-handed stuff from the government. And in a way, maybe this is a good thing, because there's a lot of people all over the West that absolutely are against the federal controls that are being imposed on us and have been imposed on us. Caller, quickly, I've only got 2 minutes, and then I got to do a commercial break. Go ahead.
Yeah, quickly, Zeb, I think that they fined him $400,000 plus sent him to prison, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll hang up.
No, I mean, the fine, and to me that was extremely exorbitant for 130-plus acres. I mean, come on. And
well, they were leasing this. This is leased, ground they were grazing on, BLM ground.
Right.
But if you go back through it, and I'm not saying you don't know this, but they want to expand this refuge, this wildlife refuge, and
right.
they're the last couple of the last ranchers on this area that they want to take, and they're just trying to squeeze them out with any means possible.
Oh, gee, you don't mean to intimate that the government might want to take over private property and run people out of business? Oh, surely you're not intimating that.
Well, it's just like everything in this administration.
Yeah.
They pick and choose whatever they decide to do, and in this case, these ranchers are being made a terrible example of, and whether or not we agree with what the people over there at the inhabiting the refugee center or the refuge center, they're bringing light to it.
Got to run, Randy. I'm running late, but thank you for that input. And by the way, thanks again. I had that little bit on this morning about the cake company up in Washington. I'll have more later on this morning. Thank you.
Oh,
all right.
Do it.
All right, buddy. Don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. We are supposed to be getting snow. Holy smokes, it could come in. The way it's cloudy outside, it looks like it might be coming right now. And you better be traction ready with all the different tread designs, all the studded tires, all the snow wheels, the chains for your tires, everything right there at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And the best of front-end alignment, shocks, and struts. Boy, when you talk about brake service, these folks are the best. You be sure and check it out. And the batteries, oh, they got all of them right there at all 7 locations. Lane in Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike in Buell, Mike in Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley, the best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You've been listening to Zeb at the Ranch for the first hour. Make sure you're hearing everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology for hearing screening. Call them at 312-0957. I'll be back in 6 minutes. Don't you go away. Wow, it's nasty looking outside. Welcome back to hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Thank you, Les Schwab. And, of course, also some of our great advertisers, including Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. I want to remind you, too, about Let's Ride. Let's Ride, my goodness sakes, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. Oh, my goodness sakes, I'll tell you what, all the winter clothing is marked down. Great deals right now, and they got a few snowmobiles left. Hey, you better get in there, check out the great pricing. And don't forget, they have everything over there for your motorcycles or ATVs. Very, very well stocked with all the accessories. You're going to love this place. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. Let's go to the phone line right now. Lovely lady. We got through the Christmas and New Year's holidays, and now she's hard back at work at the Mini-Cassia Chamber of Commerce. Hello, Kay Cameron.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. It's a little foggy out there today, but it's going to be a beautiful day.
What'd you say? I can't hear you because of the fog.
Yeah, it was a little foggy driving into work today, but just be safe out there and be careful. Take a little bit more time to get to where you're going, but it's going to be a beautiful day.
Now, let me ask you, here we are already, January the 7th, and I'll bet you that your day planner is starting to really fill up with all the activities for this year. What's coming up next?
Oh, well, we had our monthly board meeting this morning, so we've been at it for quite some time already today. January is always busy for me just because of things I've got going on, but we actually have our annual chamber installation banquet coming up on the 28th of this month, and that's open to all of our chamber members. It's always very, very well attended. We have lots and lots of people there. It's a great opportunity for business networking and to find out what's going on, and as we install our new chamber board and our new directors, and so that's kind of what our focus is going to be on in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Now, you know, what happens every day over at the Chamber of Commerce? I never have asked you, what's a day in the life of Kay Cameron like right after the holidays and you're sitting in your office? What are you doing?
Oh, well, this week I've been, I took some time off over the holidays, and so getting back to work, I spent a lot of time on the email. I've been preparing financials and minutes for our board meeting this week. I've spent a lot of time on the computer. The first of the month, I always get the opportunity to do that. But a day here at the Chamber, it's never the same. We never know who's going to walk through the door or who's going to give us a call and the kinds of questions they're going to ask. And the only dumb question is one that you don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
But we get all kinds of questions from all kinds of people from all across the country. So it's never the same thing, like I said, and we just never know. We all certainly have regular things that need to be done and emails that need to be checked and things that need to be gone through and monthly newsletters that need to be put out and different things, but a day in the life, it's really hard to say. This time of year, January is probably our quietest as far as visitors into our office, but we still are getting the phone calls and things going on. So now that it's the first of the year, we'll start getting phone calls. When is the Idaho Regatta, and when is the Spudman, and when are the fireworks for the 4th of July? And so people are starting to plan summer vacations and summer trips and those types of things, but we just never know.
I was just thinking, you really could be kind of a smart aleck like I am sometimes, and if somebody calls and says, when's the fireworks for the 4th of July, you could tell them July 10th.
We could, but we are a visitor center. But, we get some really interesting questions, and one time I had a visitor in here, and they were asking about, they wanted to know what the pivot was out in the field.
Uh-huh.
And they'd never seen a pivot before. And so I was kind of trying to explain it to them in simple terms, and they just couldn't grasp the concept of how that could even work because they'd never experienced them and obviously didn't have a sort of a mechanical mind that could understand how the wheels could carry the pivot around in a circle and it could irrigate the crop.
See, you've got to know almost everything. They should give you a raise because, there you are, the omnipotent master of knowledge over there at the Mini-Cassia Chamber of Commerce.
They do. We do get. We've talked often that we should make a book. Some of the things are really interesting. One time somebody asked me, "How do you dispose of a trailer house?"
Are you kidding me?
I don't really have an answer to that. I don't know.
Well, you could have just said you back up to the Snake River Canyon and let her go.
Yeah, Heather got a call once that somebody was calling. They were from out of the area, and they were really concerned about our crop circles.
Oh, my.
But they were pivots, that were irrigating the crops.
Yeah.
They were concerned about our crop circles. And so we do have some very interesting things, but also a lot of people that are just curious and really just do want to have real good conversations. And
all right, well, let me ask you this. Would you please tell everybody when the 4th of July fireworks will be and give them all the ways they can contact you at the Chamber?
Well, the 4th of July fireworks in Burley will be on July 4th, but the 4th of July fireworks in Rupert are always on the 30th.
Okay.
So it's kind of a trick.
I know, I'm kidding.
Come by and see us. We're located at 1177 7th Street in Hayburn on the beautiful Snake River. Give us a call at 208-679-4793. Find us online at minicassiachamber.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
There you go.
Our website. Find about all the community events going on.
There you go. Kay Cameron, Mini-Cassia Chamber of Commerce. God bless. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
I will. Thank you. Nice lady right there. And we'll quickly go to the phone line in just a moment. Stand by, Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Highway 24 in Rupert. Oh, my goodness sakes. All your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, everything to make sure you are protected. Call them today for an appointment, 436-4424. Very accessible and responsive to your needs. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. They are the professionals. They are the best. 436-4424. I'll bet you a lot of people wake up in the morning and the first thing they think about when they stretch and yawn is, I want to become a University of Idaho master gardener so I can jump tall corn stalks in a single bound. Well, here's master gardener Tony McCammon. Good morning, Tony. How are you?
I'm getting him on right now.
You haven't got him after all that? What have you been doing?
I had to get through the secretary.
Okay, well, let's get him on. My goodness, I give him the best doggone build-up in the universe. We'll have him on momentarily. And after all that, going through the secretary to try to get Tony on the air. Hurry, secretary. Punch him in.
I got him.
There you go. Once again, just for his benefit, if you want to become a University of Idaho master gardener that can jump through the garden and jump over corn stalks in a single bound, here's Tony McCammon. Good morning, Tony.
How's it going?
Where in the world are you anyway? You sound like you're 100 miles away.
Yeah, I'm only in Twin Falls, but the connection seems a little washy.
A little? Okay. Now, what is this about registering to become a University of Idaho Master Gardener? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Master Gardener program was started in Idaho in 1976. It's been around a long time. We have Master Gardener programs throughout the state. I run the Master Gardener program here in the Magic Valley and up into the Wood River Valley. We're having 3 programs offered this year, one right down there in Burley, and we're really excited about that. It's not often I teach a night class, and this is offered for those people that work during the day. So we're hoping we can fill that class. It'll be held at the CSI campus there in Burley. Every Wednesday night.
All right. Now, what about the other locations? Because our airwaves on the radio don't stop at the county lines. What are the other locations?
You betcha. So Twin Falls will be offered Thursday mornings, and then in Gooding, we're still looking to have a class there. We're really low on registration there, but that class will be Thursday afternoons.
Okay.
So those are the 3 classes we're offering. The class runs 13 weeks. It's $125 for those that 40 hours worth of in-class training. Now, the program was set up as a volunteer program, a volunteer educational program through the University of Idaho. And, after you get 40 hours of in-class training, to receive your certification as a University of Idaho Master Gardener, you give back 40 hours to your local communities in different beautification projects and educating the community. Really, it's about educating the community and bringing everybody up and teaching everybody how to have a little bit more of a green thumb.
Okay, now wait a minute. I got to ask you this, Tony. What was the propelling force that made Tony McCammon want to spend his life teaching people how to be good gardeners?
Oh, my goodness. This is one of the best jobs in the world. It's really about seeing people change. When someone, you have these people in the class that have spent years away from college, years away from, trying to delve into something that they may enjoy. But when they start taking a class and they start teaching other people, something really wakes up in them, and it is a college course. You can get college credit for it. You can get CEUs for it. It's a course, and it causes people to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And whenever you get out of your comfort zone, and you kind of live on that fringe of uneasiness, you grow, and that's the benefit for me, is watching people truly grow.
Yeah, there's a play on words, watching people grow in a gardening class. That was well stated, Tony. Very well done. Yeah, very well done. Listen, 40 hours of class instruction. 40 hours? There were some college classes I had that I couldn't stomach more than 8 hours in a semester. I mean, what are you going to do for 40 hours? Tony,
we go through a lot of different topics. So we cover everything horticulture based, but we really spend a lot of time on pest management because we really want to be able to, I really want to help the master gardeners as they come out of the class know how to identify and help others treat for those pests.
Oh.
If indeed they're pests, sometimes. We spent a whole class just identifying the beneficial insects that a lot of people would see and then immediately go spray. But actually, those are guys that are working for you in your garden. So we go through a lot of pest management, and we talk about integrated pest management, which is using different methods, low toxicity, and cultural practices to manage the pest first. And to look for those beneficial insects, and then move into some. If we're not seeing the control we would like, then we move into other things. So we teach them this process that they can then go into their communities and create a safer community, and still have really good vegetables and fruits and good looking lawns and flowers and trees and shrubs. So that's the goal. But we do go through all those things. We go through how to properly plant a tree and how to prune a tree and how to prune a fruit tree and how that's different than pruning an ornamental tree, and turf grass management, and a little bit of design of how to mix and match flowers together to create striking landscapes.
Oh. Well, what do you give them at graduation, a hoe and a rake?
No, absolutely not. I hope that most people that come into the class already know how to use a hoe and a rake and a shovel. I'm hoping that they come away with the knowledge that there are so many resources out there, and they know how to use those resources now. That's really what I want them to come out of class with. That and they get a huge manual. And we go through and from each class we go through. I call them my gold nuggets. They are the little points of information that are immediately usable in the garden and the landscape, and hopefully they can come away with about 15 to 20 things that they can immediately be a better gardener just because they know those gold nuggets.
Oh my. Well, I'll tell you what, real quick, tell everybody one more time where they sign up, how they sign up, and when the classes are.
Great. Thank you, Zeb. Yeah, give me a call. My phone number here at the Twin Falls County Extension Office is 734-9590. You can also look us up on Facebook, and that's the Magic Valley Horticulture, or Hort Magic, and you can get some more information there. We have a couple posts there that talk about the program, a little bit more about me, and my aspirations in the program.
You know what, Tony?
Those are the best ways. Just get in contact with my extension office here in Twin Falls County, and then you can actually register through any of your local extension offices in Gooding, Twin Falls, Burley, Rupert, Jerome, any of the county extension offices.
All right. Tony McCammon, he's a good old boy. He's got a good sense of humor. 734-9590. Tony, someday give me a call. Come on out to the studio, and we'll do a half-hour segment on this.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you, Zeb.
All right, buddy. Have a good day. Thanks much for being on the program.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Interesting Master Gardener program, Tony McCammon. I'll have him on the program someday over here at the studio, and we'll discuss more about this. Good old boy right there. I appreciate that. Don't forget Red's Trading Post at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls with Ryan and the rest of the crew. These are the people that really know firearms. They really know ammunition. They know all about the accessories. They've got all the hard-to-find powder for the reloaders. And they've been in business in that area of historic Old Town Twin Falls since 1936. Stop in and visit with people that really know about firearms. And that's Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Holy cow, where'd all these dogs come from anyway? They're all over the place. Who let the dogs out after Mort spent all week last week putting them in? My goodness sakes, here's Officer of Animal Control, Officer Ken Mort. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, did you have a good Christmas and New Year's?
We had a great Christmas and New Year's. The kids got what they asked Santa for, and have been just enjoying everything. And I mean, unfortunately, been so busy we still haven't gotten our Christmas decorations down, and it's already after the first of the year. And
oh, that's all right. I think we should celebrate Christmas once a month.
Well, I had a friend of mine the day after Christmas. He goes, you know, there's 364 days and that's till Christmas, and everybody still got their Christmas decorations up already.
Yeah, there you go. I tell you what, I love Christmas. Anyway, how were the holidays in regards to dogs?
Actually, they were great. Matter of fact, after the last show that we did before Christmas, we had some people come in that following week and bring us in a great big old box of treats and stuff for us to be able to give the dogs on Christmas Day. There were so many treats, we actually treated them for, I'd say, probably about 4 or 5 days, starting on Christmas Eve all the way through until the New Year.
Oh, that is great. You know, it's got to be heartwarming for what you do, but then on the other side of the coin, it has to be sad sometimes, too. I don't know if I could do your job.
You know, it's hard at times. I mean, especially when you find out information like one of the things I wanted to get out today is people definitely need to be keeping a close eye on their pets. We've gotten some reports, and we're trying to get the people aware that there are people out there that have had their dogs taken right out of their yards. Matter of fact, there was a gentleman and his dad. On the same evening. The gentleman and had 2 dogs come up missing. His dad, 2 dogs come up missing just down the road from him. The gentleman actually found his dog, or one of his dogs, up in Boise. And the dogs had collars, had tags with contact information, the whole 9 yards. And we have a feeling that there's somebody running around out there picking up people's dogs and relocating them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and stuff, and that, until we can catch them, there's not much we can do. But when we do catch them, it is actually a crime. If you pick up a dog for any other reason than it's the dog's safety, it is considered theft. And people need to be aware of that. I mean, if you're picking up a dog for its safety, make sure you get in contact with the local animal control. Say, hey, I found this dog in this location, I need to either bring it in or I'm willing to foster the dog. Here's my contact information until the owner makes contact with you, and then we can get them in touch with each other. Don't just pick up a dog and rehome it on that immediately, thinking that it's a stray dog, because it's not. I mean, it's somebody's pet, and they're out looking for it.
And one other thing, Ken, in the time remaining, on the other side of that coin, I want to make a statement here, and I want you to follow up with it. Right now in our neighborhood, we have dogs that are patrolling the area in packs, 2 to 3 to 4 or more to a pack. And quite frankly, as a property owner with livestock and horses and everything, we've got to protect our animals. And that means I'm going to take any measure necessary from now on to make sure those dogs don't come back on my property.
Right, and you have that full right, especially in the state of Idaho. If there is any dog that is coming into your property and you've got livestock and you're out in the country, you have the right to defend that livestock and protect that livestock, which means you can legally shoot that dog that is coming into your livestock. And there is nothing that if the owner comes back and says, well, you shot my dog, well, it was in my livestock, I have every right to, and there's nothing they can do about it. So make sure that in the state of Idaho, they have a law on that, I believe it's 25-2805, paragraph 1, states that if you live near any farmland, pasture land, cultivated land, or another dwelling house, your dogs are to be contained at all times.
Well,
now,
and
if you are outside with that dog and it is running loose, it is under your supervision and is considered to be contained. But if you are not out with your pet, it is considered to be at large, and you can be fined.
Well, and people that have livestock, baby calves, horses, whether it's rope and steers, doesn't make any difference. We cannot stand that kind of intrusion because of the damage and the absolute horror that it'll prevail itself. And we've got to protect our property and our animals.
Exactly. I mean, and it can carry a pretty stiff fine if an owner of a dog and it gets into livestock. I had a issue where a lady's dog had gotten loose, went over to the neighbors and killed 3 chickens. They got a ticket for the worrying and killing of livestock. They wound up getting fined $300 and had to replace those chickens on top of that. So I mean, it can, depending on what kind of a livestock animal it is, you could be talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So take the extra caution and keep your pets contained.
Absolutely. You know, Ken, that's why I like you on this program. You do such a wonderful job of explaining everything. Real quick, how do people get a hold of you at Minidoka Animal Control?
They can reach us at 438-2200. You can reach me on my cell phone at 670-7268, or Haber's Animal Control Officer, Deb Hines, at 670-4348.
May I wish to you and yours a very happy New Year.
And same to you.
All right, buddy. Take care. Talk to you next week.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Officer Ken Mort with Minidoka Animal Control. Where'd all these dogs come from? Oh, I look forward to him coming on the program every week, and thank you very much, Officer Ken Mort. Known him for a long, long time. Right now, I'm really looking forward to this because we've missed her for the last couple of weeks due to Christmas and due to New Year's. Here she comes, the lovely Rita Ramsey. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really worried this morning, Rita. Alleviate my fears, would you please?
I don't really have any good news for you. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Well, on this program, this segment, we always delve into politics. And I don't know if you were listening to me the first hour or not, but when you think about where we are right now as a nation that supposedly is the leader of all nations of the world, they look up to us for respect and really what to do next. We're talking about problems, major problems with North Korea, major problems with Iran and the Middle East. We're talking about major problems with ISIS. We're talking about so many things that can and possibly will blow up in our face because of a lack of leadership. This man is not doing anything.
He's doing anything that he can to shift any attention away from him and what's going on. I honestly feel like that he is just trying to destroy America. He promised us he was going to fundamentally change us, and so I don't know why we would think other words. The big problem is that they're dangling something out in front of us, hoping that it will take our attention away from the big stuff that's going on.
All right, but now let's just break this down a little bit. There's no accountability, there's no responsibility, and there's no questions being asked of this administration. You know as well as I do, Rita, this is a fact, that when the White House press corps gets together, they're like a little bunch of sheep. They're afraid to ask poignant questions because they might not get asked again, and they'll lose their status as a White House media member. I am fed up with this. People should be asking Obama, why are we releasing these vermin back into society that want to cut our throats? These things need to be asked.
Well, there's not only that, but there's things going around the world, too. Like, okay, did you see how they dismissed the Korean thing?
Yeah.
They didn't say, you know what, we're checking into it or anything else. It's, oh, there's nothing there. They didn't do anything, blah, 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 and just let's go on to the next question, you know.
But what do we do? I mean, I just absolutely, this morning I was on the phone early back to Washington, D.C. and also New York to some of the think tanks, and they're outraged. They are absolutely outraged that the so-called elite of the press corps, they're not asking questions. They're not raising their hand and saying, President Obama, why are you releasing more of these killers at Gitmo back into the society that have vowed to cut the throats of Americans? What's wrong with asking the president that question? They're not doing their job.
Well, they should be, and somebody's going to have to step in and start doing it. And there are places, there are a number of websites, and, there's Newsmax, there's Breitbart News, there's The Blaze, there's all of those that they're basically internet news people, but they need to be supported by the general public and start putting the others aside and saying, you know what, you're not giving us anything. We don't even want to deal with you.
I honestly, and I mean this, I've been biting my tongue for a long time on this program, and I'm going to let it out because I honestly feel that Obama and John Kerry, Secretary of State, and the rest of these people are nothing more than clowns that belong to a circus that drive to the White House and their offices every day in a clown car. This is ridiculous.
Well, it really is, and basically what it boils down to is that they're puppets. There's puppets, and they're just doing whatever somebody's asking them to do, and they're just on an 8-year vacation of all expenses paid.
Well, you look at Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, and I saw the sincerity in his eyes and heard it in his voice when he came right out and said, we are completely void in leadership. Boy, that doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy.
Well, and that's why ever more important is what we should be doing with our political situation. We should be finding out who's going to be our best leader and make sure that we get some answers from them and get things going. We can't continue this way. We're doomed to be destroyed.
Well, we say this every week, but I'm frustrated. I promised my wife that I would try to keep my blood pressure lower after the first of the year, but my goodness, when you look at the Middle East this morning, and it's not an exaggeration, Rita, you know this is true, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Iran, whether it's Pakistan, Afghanistan, it doesn't make any difference, Saudi Arabia, this is a powder keg that could burn and blow up the entire world, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, it is, and it just makes you really, really worried and concerned, and I'm really concerned. The thing that I'm concerned about is a lot of the things that aren't being talked about, and one of them, it happened just the Friday before Christmas, or the Thursday before Christmas, that omnibus bill that they signed, or, the week before, and they all just went off on vacation, and they knew that the majority of the talk show people were going to be gone, and all of your news people were going to be gone, so there'd just be sit-ins, and they wouldn't be digging and asking questions. And, oh, by the way, nobody's going to be at the White House to answer any questions. The thing that's bad is we need to get a hold of our representatives. Now, thank goodness that Idaho actually had 3 representatives out of 4 that voted against that. But my big question is why did the 4th one not vote against it?
Yeah, absolutely. Call names on this program. Who are you referring to?
Well, Congressman Simpson. He voted for it because it had so many good things in it. Well, if it had so many good things, why did our other 3 vote against it?
Absolutely.
Their answer was, we haven't read it and we don't know what it contains. So we're not voting for it.
Rita...
And he didn't read it either.
Rita, I got to tell you that... And I'm trying to phrase this without a temper, but I read the 5 or 6 different sections on climate change that are illustrious, and I use that term in a source of humor. Times News wrote about how we're all going to burn up and climate change this, climate change that. It's completely a whitewash and a snowball in an oven. If you believe in climate change as the number one thing that we should be worried about and think that that's doomsday, when you have ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the entire world ready to blow up and kill people, you must be insane.
Well, and that's another thing. On Saturday, it was this last Saturday, we had to do a little traveling, and we were listening to Patriot Radio, and there was a fellow on there, and he was, I can't even remember his name. I kind of wrote it down on a paper sack that I had from my lunch that I had bought at the Chick-fil-A. And anyway, he was giving some facts, and I wanted to call in when you were talking about this on Monday, and I thought, no, I'm not going to take up their time. I get my little spiel on Thursday. I'll just talk about it. But he was talking about how the Judicial Watch, and you can go to Judicial Watch if you, anybody wants to.
Right.
Judicial Watch has actually filed a lawsuit against the federal government and NOAA, which is the people who kind of gauge all of these temperatures and this temperature and everything else. They're supposed to be the people with the real figures. Well, they've changed all the figures. In 1934 is and has been the hottest year on record, not 1996.
That's right.
And so they've changed and scooted 1934 under the rug, saying it's 1996 because we have all of these greenhouse gases and everything else that are causing problems and this and that and the other, and making it look like, well, since 96, that's just about 20 years now, we've really been doing damage, and we've got to get something done. Well, what happened in 1934 prior to that we had the hottest year on record? They just won't admit that it has nothing to do with what we're doing here. It's all a money grab. And they've even got NASA to where NASA has started down this green, we got to do this, and global warming, that, and everything else. That they're not even doing space stuff anymore.
Well,
and it's really sad because it's all just about money, and they're not giving us the true facts.
Well, listen to this. I had this on the radio yesterday. A good friend of mine that writes for the Daily Caller back in New York and Washington, D.C., wrote a story the other day called The New Global Warming Consensus, and it's not the truth. And listen to this, that the Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Power Plan is expected to cost you and me and the rest of America a staggering $41 billion with a B dollars annually, $41 billion a year. And here's what they said. It will not avert the temperature at the very most 0.019% of a degree. And Annie Leonard with Greenpeace, the former executive director, said this multi-trillion-dollar carbon racket is absolutely a dangerous distraction and not honest. I mean, you're hearing it from environmentalists themselves.
Well, they are, and it's a sad deal when they can go out and find who they want and discount anybody else and just go with their own agenda, and nobody calls them out on it. That's the part that's really sad about it, is people aren't getting the news, they're not digging for it, maybe they're not listening to the right places, I don't know, but they're not getting this kind of news. We didn't see this on Fox News, we didn't see it on any of the main stations. You kind of have to start digging between the lines, and that's what a lot of us don't have time to do, is start doing a ton of research. But the federal government is just pulling the wool over our eyes right and left, and nobody's saying anything about it.
Yeah, now I'm going to tell you something else that I'm really worried about, Rita. I don't know if you're a gun enthusiast. I don't know if Glenn has guns. It's none of my business. But I will say this. What is happening right now in Washington with this administration is just the very, very tip of the iceberg as to what Obama might try and will try before the next 377 days are up for his term in office. Gun control and climate change, I will bet you the farm that we're going to see much more on gun control, and next week this man is really going to start in on climate change.
Oh, absolutely. They have their very lives are at stake because of it, and their retirement, their futures. I still think that Obama will probably end up going somewhere into the UN and doing that. And of course, that's their very biggest thing is climate change, because they can get all of these countries to pledge money towards them, and then they can just use off of their little trust funds that they've got set up for that. But all it is a big scam. Several years ago, I saw a picture, and it showed all of the people who were part of the American one, and it actually started with the buyback. If you if you're the tax or the green credits and stuff, so that you can use as much electricity as you want. It's just going to cost you extra money, and then we'll take that money and buy trees down in the Amazon or someplace, and that's just a big scam. And Al Gore was at the top of it. There's a ton of people. George Soros is at the top of it. But you've got Hillary and Bill and Barack Obama and just tons of other people. Probably by now there's many senators that are involved in it. And that's why they're all looking the other direction, is they're stuffing money into their pockets so fast they can't even see straight.
I want to change gears here a little bit, and I'm going to do a weather forecast. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about Hillary Clinton. She may possibly be in prison by this time next year. We'll talk about that in just a moment with Rita Ramsey. Stand by. Time for our weather, brought to you by Mountain Transmissions. Rick and the rest of the crew, they can fix transmissions. They can make sure when you put it in drive, yep, you will. And stop over and see them today. Repairs, rebuilds, and believe me, they got a transmission tune-up special right now, just $89.95. They're located at 504 East Main in Burley. Call them with questions at 678-9110. Mountain Transmissions. Here's Gina with the weather.
Here's your weather forecast for this January 7th as we do move closer to the weekend. And it looks like a chance of afternoon snow showers for today, about a 40% chance. Humidity sitting at about 91%. Winds out of the northwest right around 7 miles an hour. Expect a high of 33. Tonight, low of 26. Tomorrow, morning snow showers are going to continue. Winds out of the west right around 10 miles an hour. High of 30 with an overnight low of 23. Partly cloudy and 29 for Saturday and Sunday. Cloudy and 30. And that's your weather. Have a good one on 7th Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. Brought to you this hour by Mountain Transmissions. Thank you, Rick and the crew over at 504 East Main in Burley. Number to call, 678-9110. Rita, I don't know why we, as the American public, are not demanding, taking our boots, our shoes off, pounding them on the desk, whatever, more of research and more inquiries as to how really illegal Hillary Clinton is. I mean, my goodness, people that have committed far, far less have served time or been booted out of office, whatever, and she's still running for the presidency. However, the FBI and some of the leaks from that organization have said, there's a lot here that maybe we might have to arrest her, and she may be in jail on felony charges. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's their ace card. I think they're just waiting for it to get a little bit further on to where they can't back up and change. I honestly think that they will be doing something. And that's why they've put out so many different feelers about the Clinton Foundation and about Hillary and about, her emails. And, I mean, just everything that they've floated. Every bit of that information had to come via the White House. That came from Obama's office or his minions. It didn't come from some poor little conservative congressman that was trying to get, some notoriety by bringing that information out. That information came via the White House. They were trying to float it and see what would happen, and because everybody's in the tank for Hillary, it didn't really do too awful much. They've got some of us screaming about Benghazi and saying, hey, you need to check into it, and the FBI should be checking it, and why aren't they? Well, I think the FBI is checking it, and I think you're going to see some things come to fruition here, but it's going to be after it's a little too late to get another runner. And they're saying, well, there's no way that Bernie Sanders can do it, so we're going to have to just slip Joe Biden or, I've had a few people say, well, maybe they'll get John Kerry or some, one of those that's already seasoned for running for president and have him come in. But I honestly think that President Obama does not want the Clintons back in the White House, and he will do anything in his power to keep them from there. And so it's kind of like, okay, just let her go, let things happen, and then when it gets to be a real crucial time, we'll slap an indictment on her and see how that lasts and haul her off to jail, and because of it, she won't be able to run. I really think that's what's going to happen.
Let me say this. Of the people that I know back in Washington, D.C. and New York, it was really interesting, Rita. there were many, and you've seen some of these people on television with Hannity and O'Reilly, etc., but there was an intimation that Joe Biden has changed his speech patterns over the last couple of days to where it was never, but now it might be maybe in case he's called upon. I wonder if they're not setting the stage for possibly the FBI's charges against Hillary, or she's in the soup too deep to climb out of the bowl. If Joe's not priming the public in a very subtle way, I'm here, take me.
Oh, absolutely. And, when he made his speech, which was a concession speech that he wasn't going to do it, he was going to go ahead and let it just do its process, he said he wasn't really ready to run for president now. He didn't say, I'm not going to run for president. He said now. And so, several months later, and it's been that long, we'll see what happens. But I honestly think that they will just go ahead and push him in there and say, well, he's the vice president, and this deal with Hillary's, caused a black mark on the Democrats, and the only chance we've got of getting a Democrat in there is to have Joe Biden in there, and they'll go with it. I really think they're going to do something to totally destroy Hillary from being their candidate.
I was watching the other night, and I know that the public out there listening to this program is going to say, well, you're prejudiced, you don't like him, and that's why you're saying what you're saying. Well, that's true. I'm prejudiced. I don't like him, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I don't like Bill Clinton, never did like Bill Clinton, don't trust Bill Clinton, and I can't trust Hillary, but she's wheeling him out at the podium as the knight in shining armor to help save her campaign. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think she was a little naive to do something like that, because she kind of forgets that there's a bunch of us that remember what happened back in the 90s when he was in office. And even though he was reelected and he was supposedly one of the wonders of presidents, he did a lot of bad stuff, and it was only because he had a Republican Congress that they made a lot of changes with welfare and some of the stuff that they wanted to do. Is that he had to go along with them because they were the majority, and it was kind of like, you got to go along with it or else, and he's a go-along guy. And I think that they kind of thought, well, we'll just go ahead and put him out there because everybody loves him, and, he'll be the one that'll kind of just, carry us over across the finish line, and that's not going to be the case. There's too much stuff out there, and he has done too many bad things for people to not pay attention and bring it out and let it be, grandized in the media.
Let me go on the other side of the aisle. We've only got about 2.5 minutes left, but I want to see if you've noticed the same thing. Some of the fearless Trump haters, and many columnists that write for major newspapers, many talk show hosts on television, etc., that absolutely denounced and hated Trump. I honestly have noticed, Rita, a softening to Donald Trump in the last couple of weeks. Are you noticing the same thing?
Yeah, I think that's happening. The insiders in Washington and in the Republican Party don't want Trump, but that's because he's kind of called them out. I'm still a little skittish of Trump myself because he is not a true conservative, and that's who I would prefer. But I would prefer him over Hillary or Obama or anybody else. And I wonder if they aren't just thinking, well, if I keep saying there's no way that Trump can do this, and pretty soon he does, they're going to have egg on their face. So it's like, well, we better gently turn a little bit so that we can be on record as saying, well, I was kind of skeptical at once, but I say now it's probably something that could really happen.
Let me ask you this final thought on politics and then talk to us about the Tea Party. But as far as like the other candidates, ranging all the way from Kasich to Paul to Huckabee to even Bush, I think it's about time to fold their tent and wait for another summer vacation. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, there's a majority of them that should be. They're not doing anything but just damaging, what they've gotten. And as far as I'm concerned, they're looking a little foolish. They got 1 or 2%, and they didn't have enough integrity to say, you know what, I'm not gaining anything. I better just get the heck out of here and cut my losses and not look like a big loser like I am.
Yeah. What's going on with the Tea Party?
Well, we're going to have our meeting a week from tonight. We're going to go over a lot of the things with the elections. With the first primaries, of course, are in February, and so we'll be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the Muslim problem and the refugees, of course. But I just wanted to mention one thing about that deal in Oregon. You know, everybody's thinking and saying, well, hey, you know, those guys over there with the guns, they should, you know, they've got a right to do what they're doing. And I say that they do. They didn't have a right to take over a building of a government and get involved in it. But they're going to end up with some big problems. If they wanted to have the lands turned back, they should get on board with the people that we've been on board with, which is the American Lands Council, trying to get our lands back instead of doing something foolish that's going to end up with somebody getting hurt bad.
You know, and I'm going to have a segment on that at 10:30 this morning with a gentleman coming on talking about getting our lands back under our state control. I agree with you. Rita, it's so nice to have this segment back on the program after a couple of weeks gone for the holidays. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Eb. We'll see you. Bye.
You take care. Thank you. Love that lady. She does a great job. Really a great job. Holy man. Goober, I can't see anything out the window. What happened? It looks like pea soup out there. That fog is really getting thick. You know, here we go. Here we go. I'm hungry. I make no bones about it. I have been on a self-inflicted diet. And when I go through all the delicious places to go if you're hungry and starving to death, I have the only microphone in the radio business with tooth marks on it. Here we go. Taco Bandito, 2301 Overland Avenue in Burley. Oh, the steak breakfast burritos. Oh, my goodness. And they got chicken and steak burritos. The meat is marinated. Oh, it's just absolutely fantabulous. And you're going to love all the food there, all the burritos, everything, everything. The coffee's always on. You're going to love the people. Nice place to eat. Taco Bandito, 2301 Overland in Burley. Let's move on over to Steve-O's. Oh, man, I love this place. 290 South, 600 west of Heyburn. Food made the way you love it. They've got buffalo burgers. Yep, they do. Fresh hand-cut steak fries, or regular fries, a children's menu, Steve-O's nacho fries, topped with cheese and delicious jalapeno peppers. Knock your boots off, delicious. You're going to love Steve-O's, 290 South, 600 west of Heyburn. And then we go to Burgers, etc. Not one, but two locations. 124 South Oneida in Rupert and 700 Overland in Burley. And listen to this, you're not going to believe this. Hamburgers only 99 cents and cheeseburgers only $1.29 after 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Whoa! And delicious, different flavors of soup every day. I've had those, and they are fantastic. You're going to love the people and the food at Burgers, etc. in Rupert and Burley. And last but not least, in our tour of great places to go, if you're hungry, the AC Drive-In at 601 East Main in Burley with the chicken fried steak sandwich. Savor that. It is delicious, along with fries and maybe a milkshake. Oh, my goodness, and they got the famous Farmer Brown burgers. That's my favorite. And the ranch burgers. Oh, you're going to love the food. And really nice people at the AC Drive-In, 601 East Main in Burley. And those are just a few great places to go if you're hungry and starving to death. I am. By the way, real quick, serious note. A fire destroyed the home of a dear friend, Jim Coleman, south of Hazleton. They need our help. They need clothing. They need furniture. They need money, naturally, and donations. Contact Gene Brown at 731-9018 or send your cash donations to the American Legion Post, number 82, 401 Brooks Avenue in Hazleton. And for updates on what the family needs, this is very important, go to the City of Hazleton Hamilton Facebook page, and they'll have the updates, okay? Let's really help these folks out. Terrible, terrible tragedy, and we wish them the best. God bless. We're going to take a little break for some time off here this morning, about 6 minutes. Let the CBS boys come in. Then we're going to come back, and we've got Cassia County School Days, and we've got our business salute. And then at 10:30, we're going to have a gentleman from the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Fred Birnbaum. All of this and more coming up. You stay tuned. Wheels, take it away. Oh, here we go. Man, oh man, is it foggy outside. I'm talking pea soup out there today. Be careful driving. Please be careful driving. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley. Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. And right now, let's take a look at what the special is over at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Today, spaghetti and meatballs served with garlic toast, so you can have your whole office kind of shy away from you. And super salad, I'll tell you what, it's going to be great, always is. I love garlic toast. I love garlic. When I go to California, I always had a bunch of garlic on steak and everything else. Spaghetti and meatballs, delicious at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. They've always got daily great specials, along with the great menu choices. You're going to love the food and the people at the Chadwick Sports Grill. You stop in and see them today. Let's take a look here real quick. Oh, I want to make a reminder to you that on Mondays, every single Monday from now on at 10:06, we're going to be starting next Monday on the 11th. We're going to have a segment called the Legislative Update, and we're going to have either Speaker of the House Scott Bedke or Representative Fred Woods or Senator Kelly Anthon giving us an up-to-date as to what's happening up at the legislative session for this year. So be sure and call in, and if you have any questions, and I'm sure you will, and that's going to be every Monday at 10:06 to about 10:28 right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Right now, it's time for Cassia County School Days, and of course, as you know, brought to you by some wonderful, wonderful people, and I say thank you to A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. Oh my goodness, they've got a great big fantastic sale going on right now, 40 to 50% off on the winter items like clothes and hats and coats. Oh my goodness, they got all kinds of toys and games and just all great things right there at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. And also don't forget the Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Number to call and find out how you can save money on your outpatient surgeries, 677-8888. 677-8888. Give them a call today, all right? Ambulatory Surgery Center and, of course, A Child's World, bringing you Cassia County School Days. And with us this morning to get the year started off right, the communications officer for Cassia County School System, the lovely Debbie Critchfield. Good morning.
Good morning on this foggy day.
I can't see you.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are seeing very far, are we?
You know, Debbie, 2015, I'm not going to say I'm not glad it's over. I am glad it's over. Now we got to look at new and fresh things going on in 2016. I'm going to kind of turn the floor over to you to let you go into any subject you want this morning. So go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. I've actually thought of 3 things, and I'll be brief in our time, that I assume that listeners and yourself would be interested in. I think right out of the gate, I want to point out that the school board yesterday voted to pursue an election for $14.9 million. That would be a gap filler, I guess, to be able to complete the bond projects that were promised last year, that because of a variety of reasons, including underestimates, we're not able to get completed.
Okay. Now, let's kind of dissect this a little bit. I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the election date is going to be March 8th, which is really not that far off, is it?
It's not, and that is correct. There are 4 dates that school districts around the state can choose to have these types of elections. They were determined by the legislature, I think, back in 2011, and this is the earliest of the 4.
Now, Debbie, on this program, I've been very honored to have Superintendent of Schools, Galen Smyer, and the school board members, and also you as the communications director. And I'm very blunt on this program. There was a problem. There is a problem, and the problem has to be solved. It's not going to do any good to backbite. It's not going to be any good to throw any more mud at the wall. The mud's up there. So let's get this problem solved. And how would you address this if you had just a few moments right now to tell people we need to get the problem solved?
I think what you've said hits the nail right on the head. The election is the mechanism whereby patrons of our county are able to decide what they want to do. The long and short of it is we still have money. We're in a good position as far as buildings are concerned in Burley and Declo in that we have not started any projects. So we're not down a road saying, oh, we're halfway through a project or a quarter into a project that we don't have money to complete. And so if we're able to be successful in the election, we'll be able to complete the projects in their entirety. If not, then there's going to be some decision-making, some prioritization, and input from the community that will need to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And as you've pointed out, there were mistakes made, changes have been made, and I think that that's huge, and that's one of the things that the board is interested in getting out into the community is the fact that they've identified where the gaps were, and they've made those corrections. And they're hopeful by putting the information out into the public that they can restore some of the confidence in what's put out there. That's a critical piece of all of this.
Okay, so we're basically looking at about 8 weeks before this election. What do you want the general public to know as far as if they have questions, who can they call? If they have questions, what number can they call? Is there a website? I mean, give all that where they can find out the answers.
We're hoping that they'll be able to find it in all of those places, certainly calling the central office and asking for myself, speaking with any board members. We will present things into the community. We'll have them on our Facebook page. We want to get informational items out there. There's critical tax impact information that we're working with Zions to develop a chart so that folks can see what that means for them financially. We want to put timelines out there. We want to put information out there that would detail the exact benefits of having more money in the communities, what that looks like, so that when voters go and contemplate what they want to do, okay, well, how does this affect me? What does this look like? That they feel like they have the information they need to have. And as you pointed out, we got 8 weeks, and we're going to work hard, and the board is working with others to make a strategy and a plan to get that information rolled out as quickly as possible.
Okay, now, Debbie, are you going to be coming on various programs, including my own, and kind of laying this thing out for the public?
I would be very happy to do that. I think this is an important part of the interaction that we have in the community is having the discussions and trying to answer questions as best as we can. And I know there's been some criticism about the lack of transparency and some of these other things, which the board, in all of their efforts to be transparent, has received the criticism. And I had somebody recently say to me, kind of criticizing, well, why did you wait so long? Why did the board wait so long? When did they figure out this problem? The reality is the board identified the shortfalls in Burley and Declo early November and came right out. And as I mentioned that to a patron, they said, well, you didn't think that the school district could hide this from anybody. Well, the reality is they really could have. They could have proceeded with the projects, built what they had money for, and then at the end of that said, when people said, well, wait a minute, we're missing some things. Well, we're out of money now. Those were the types of things that have happened in previous bond and plant facilities, in the history of Cassia schools. And the board and the patron committee that worked to put all of this the recommendations together, felt that the right and ethical thing to do was to bring the information as quickly as possible to the community and decide as a community how we wanted to move forward.
Absolutely. And I really have a lot of respect for the way you said that, because it never makes a bit of good out of a bad situation to throw the wet rug underneath another wet rug and expect they'll both dry.
I have not heard that analogy, but that's exactly right.
Okay. I want to talk to you in the remaining time this morning, and I had my dear friend Kyle Olson from eagnews.org back in Michigan on the program a couple of days ago, talking about the Every Student Succeeds Act that was signed into law a couple of weeks ago that replaces the No Child Left Behind. What are your thoughts about this?
The flexibility that is coming to states is greater than we have seen in the last 10 years. And it's not very often that states have this kind of opportunity given them to make some significant changes if that is desired. The No Child Left Behind Act from 2001 was fairly punitive and harsh and had a lot of very strict parameters that states needed to follow. There wasn't a lot of leeway for states to determine what they thought was appropriate systems. And I think the goal originally of No Child Left Behind was focused and targeted to larger school districts around the country, such as a Los Angeles or Detroit. And it was never a great fit in a smaller state like Idaho and other smaller states across the union. And so when the time came for reauthorization of the Education Act, which we've had in place since the 60s, our legislative contingency, our congressional folks, not only in Idaho but nationwide, were able to develop something that is going to remove some of the barriers, I think, that will keep us from really identifying what makes our state or what will help our state to be successful, and how we can move forward in the way that works out best for our kids.
Okay. Now, you kind of alluded to what I was just going to ask you. Do you think that the Every Student Succeeds Act will or could provide more power back to the states and the local education authorities instead of having the omnipresent fist of the federal government over your head?
According to what I have read, and I have been studying and want to become very well versed in this new act, and I spent the Christmas break going over it and looking and studying, and everything that I see tells me that this is going to open up, and I hate to overuse the word flexibility, but I don't know any other way to say that. Some of the same parameters are there. For example, the requirement that we test 95% of our students in some kind of a statewide assessment that happens once a year in grades 3 through 8, and then once in high school. What that test is, what that looks like, what we gauge, all of those things will be up to states to decide. And there is more power that will be given to local districts, not for statewide assessment. I shouldn't lump those two together. However, just broadly speaking, we are going to see that we're able to have more power as far as the story that we tell for our schools and for our kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I was doing some research on this, as a matter of fact, and I was picking up some different articles, Wall Street Journal and the USA Today, etc., and I ran across a letter that really made a lot of sense, and it was sent into the USA Today opinion page, and it said, each child learns differently. Education reforms that don't take that into account will ultimately fall short of their goals, and the emphasis is on testing only, but tests are not the most effective way to measure success. And really there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of kids, including myself when I was in high school, tests really intimidated me for a while until I became a sophomore, junior, etc. And I wonder if maybe there aren't loopholes open in this new act, that Every Student Succeeds, to maybe where it's not just the testing that's going to come out with the final outcome.
Well, that's exactly right. And I want to point out two things briefly. One of the things that we're hearing from college presidents and institutions, higher institutions across the country, that GPAs are a better predictor of long-term success beyond high school than one summative mark at the end of your school year experience. Right. And I think that there's been some highlighting, and there's going to be a more stronger light really shown that direction. One of the things that No Child Left Behind required was that as far as accountability for states, it came down to that one mark, and it was all on the test scores. There were no other indicators that predominantly factored into how a state gave their report card to the federal government. The new act says that you can measure student growth in a variety of ways that the state determines, as long as they're meaningful and that they show that there's quality or success and that students are achieving. And so one of the things that Idaho has been looking at, the State Department, the State Board, is an indicator that would show growth. So it's not just about a final grade at the end of the year, but that the student has shown their achievement because of their improvement.
Absolutely. Debbie, we've got a quick call, and I'm running out of time, caller, so make it short and sweet. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate what you said. I had a daughter that did not do well on tests, but she could write an English paper far above everybody else. Yet I had a son that, he did well in everything, but he liked essay questions because he said you could blow your way through anything.
Right.
So I think each child does learn differently, and to do it strictly on testing is not a good idea.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your call this morning. Debbie, do you want to respond to that quickly?
I just want to reiterate the fact that I think the focus is going away from solely being about the test, and that you're trying to find multiple measures or indicators of how students are successful rather than just one point in time of one particular year.
Right. Let me just throw this in, and I'm running a little bit over, but I want your short response on this. I thought, tell me if I'm wrong, that No Child Left Behind really kind of stymied and stopped the cream of the class, the top students, from reaching for the stars and going higher. Do you think Every Student Succeeds Act will be better to create more incentive for students?
Based on what I've read, I would agree with that. I think that No Child Left Behind, there was a big focus on remediation and a big focus on getting those lower kids up, and less of a focus on helping our brighter students achieve. And I think that, looking back with the historical perspective of the last 10 years, that educators are saying, wait, we missed a significant part of what it is that we do in the day. We're trying to show improvement and growth, and that it's not just about being at a certain cut score, for example.
Oh my goodness, I'm so far out of time, I'm going to have to throw my watch away. Debbie Critchfield, Communications Officer for the Cassia County Schools, thank you so much. God bless, and come back again real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Cassia County School Days brought to you by A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley and Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue, 677-8888. Thank you very much. Holy cow, we got to go to the phone lines, and I believe with us right now we have a great guy, Joel Heward with Hanson Mortuary. Good morning, Joel. How are you?
I'm going to get him on the phone, sir.
Well, hurry. There you go. We're running out of time. Man, I'm like paddling the canoe with no oar here this morning. All of a sudden, we're really late. I want to remind you that at 10:32 this morning, we're going to have a representative from the Idaho Freedom Foundation on the program, a gentleman by the name of Fred Birnbaum. I've never met him, talked to him on the phone, and he's going to come out and tell us a little bit about the Freedom Foundation. We'll find out more. But right now, we'll go back over to Wheels and see if he's got him lined up on the air with Joel Heward. Is he there?
Yes, sir.
Attaboy, Wheels. Good job. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, my dear friend has been for many, many years at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, Joel Heward. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning.
How are you, my dear friend?
Well, I'm half unthawed and half awake.
Well, I tell you what, I'll bet you had I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year's holiday season.
I sure did. Got to spend a little time with my family and go out and do some fun stuff. Exercise our Second Amendment rights, and
there you go.
Had a good time.
There you go. Joel, I wished we could have had a chance to get you on prior to Christmas and New Year's, but I would imagine for a lot of people that have suffered a loss in the family that that can be an extremely heartbreaking and lonely time. Is it not?
It can be a very difficult time. It's it's a hard time of the year to lose a loved one, and if you've lost a loved one in the past, it's pretty close to the surface, and it's just a special time of year because of that. But so it can be very difficult for people that experience a loss during those holidays.
What would you tell people as far as maybe getting help, maybe getting counseling, maybe sitting down and having a cup of coffee with somebody? What would you tell people?
Well, definitely our first immediate source that we recommend is if they have a church organization that they go to, a church family, number one. And there's different organizations around the valley, depending on where the people are from, that we can direct them to. There's a couple other churches around that have groups that meet and, just sit and talk and kind of help each other through.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, when there is the passing of a loved one, I mean, you just don't drop the ball right there. I mean, you really stay and visit and try to be a consoling interest with these families, don't you?
Well, definitely. It's a lot of consultation and communication to get things set up in a way that they like. One of the funeral directors here before, Mr. Hanson, he is famous for saying funerals are like planning a wedding, except you do it in about 3 days.
Right.
So, that's what we do. And, so there's quite a lot of communication that goes on in those first couple days, and to get things set up and organized, and the venues set up and organized and announcements out and things put together, with correct spellings and things like that. We're dealing with legal records, and there's just a lot to it. And over the holidays we had, someone that passed, and they had the arrangements. It's really a great help when they have those things written down to be able to just take the information, or if I have it on hand. In this case, the family had it on hand, and we were just able to take that, get things started, at a time that fit my schedule, in between the holidays, and it actually went very smooth considering.
One thing I want to mention, and we got about a minute left here, is that the phrase that you believe that every life is worth remembering. And that really is poignant, because when you think about it, everybody has touched someone else's life by their work, by their play, by their conversations, and all of these things could be very important for you to be given to plan that service, correct?
Very much so. Very much so. And as people, I think we tend to not put so much emphasis on ourselves, which is natural for people that have families and want to be giving. And, we practice our whole lives to be charitable and be giving and be kind to others. If at the end of our life that's how we find ourselves, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But, our family looks at us, the person that's passed, as the one who's given them a lot of everything.
Absolutely.
And, so whether that person thought much of doing things for themselves or not, their family and their acquaintances and their friends want to show their support and their appreciation of that person's giving, and that's when they do that.
Absolutely. I've got to run, but I want to say thank you very much to Joel Heward of Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Just a wonderful gentleman, always with a smile on his face. God bless you, and have a very happy 2016, my friend.
Hey, thank you, and thanks for everything you do.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you. God bless. One of the nicest people I know, and I appreciate him, Joel Heward, and I've never seen that man without a smile. I really, really appreciate that. We are going to take a little break right now, and that was our business salute for this week. We're going to turn it back over to our main studios with old Wheels and the crew, and we'll be back with our guest in about 3 minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Welcome back. Very, very foggy out there. Drive carefully and slow down a little bit. Don't drive over your headlights this morning, man. It is pea soup out there. We made a contact with this gentleman that's going to be on my program next a couple of days ago, called him at the Idaho Freedom Foundation, and I invited Fred Birnbaum, the vice president, to be on my program this morning. Fred, good morning. How are you? Are you there, Fred?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but don't use a speakerphone. Hang up on that speakerphone and use a regular handheld if you would, please.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Speakerphones should be only used for one thing, and that's target practice with a shotgun. Fred, tell us a little bit about the Idaho Freedom Foundation, what you are, who you are, and what you hope to accomplish.
We are Idaho's leading public policy institution. We're based here in Boise, Idaho. We're an organization with conservative principles, and what we hope to accomplish is to make Idaho a better place for families, a freer place to do business. We've kind of got 4 pillars that we work from: economic freedom, workplace freedom, reducing federal dependency, and promoting individual liberty. The economic freedom is fairly straightforward. We want low and predictable taxes, and we work to avoid legislation, or I should say to push back against legislation that promotes cronyism and special deals. So that's one of our pillars. On the workplace freedom front, there's been a big trend lately toward more and more occupational licensing, and you've probably heard this in the national news where some states even want to license hair braiders.
Yeah.
Well, in Idaho, that trend is taking place here. They've tried to license people who do sign language, which would even include family members. So we push back against that because we think it's harder for people to earn a living when there are more and more regulations. On the individual liberty front, we promote things like Second Amendment rights, and we're going to support the permitless or constitutional carry legislation that's likely to come forward. We're also against takings that cities and counties sometimes do using urban renewal districts. And then finally, and this is the issue I'd like to talk to you today about, we are trying to push back against federal dependency. Many people don't realize this, but about 34% of Idaho's total revenues come in the form of federal aid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dangerous because the federal government is about $19 trillion in debt. And a part of that occurs because Idaho is 62% federal land.
Right.
So to the extent that we're dependent on the federal government because the federal government owns so much of the state, that's something that we want to educate Idaho's citizens and voters on so that they can look to alternatives.
You know, Fred, there's an old country song that was put out by Tennessee Ernie Ford years ago called 16 Tons. And in that song, there's a phrase, I owe my soul to the company store. And basically, that's what's happening right now. The federal government is the company store, and we owe our souls to them. That's about what's happening state by state all across the country, isn't it?
Well, that's true in the West. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you go east of the Rockies, the federal government owns very little land. In many states in the east, like New York and others, it's 1 or 2%. And even in the Midwest, less than 5% of the land in those states is owned by the federal government.
Right.
But when you go to the West, the western states, including Idaho, Nevada's over 80% federal land, Idaho's over 60, Utah's over 60. It's a different story, and it really reduces our fiscal options and our financial independence, because they control the land and they've reduced logging, grazing, mining, and made us more dependent on things like payment in lieu of taxes. So yes, we do owe our soul to the company store, and the company store is a federal government.
Let me ask you this. I would imagine that you and your organization, the Idaho Freedom Foundation, is really watching that situation up in Burns, Oregon, as far as possible escalation and possible problems. But there is right what you're talking about happening in real live time in Burns right now as we speak, isn't it?
Well, I do want to speak to that, and I think part of the problem that our side has, if you will, is that situations like what's happening in Burns or the Bundy Ranch situation, instead of really talking about the larger economic arguments, the story becomes the personalities and potentially the character flaws of the participants, and some of the arguments that participants make aren't the strongest arguments. At the Idaho Freedom Foundation, we don't necessarily want to hold up what's taking place in Burns, as a model for what we think would work. And I'll give you an example. There are a number of stories about exactly what happened to the Hammond Ranch family, whether they were burning to clear brush or whether they were burning, as alleged by a prosecutor, to hide poaching using arson. They were prosecuted under an anti-terrorism statute. The acreage that burned is roughly 130, 140 acres. The federal government sets fires. Occasionally those get out of control.
That's right.
One in Lemon, South Dakota, burned about 11,000 acres. The original target was 130, and nobody was held accountable. Not one bureaucrat lost a day's pay. And I think that's the larger issue, not the particulars of the folks that are occupying the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge and why they're there, but the fact that the federal government, as a landlord, does what it pleases, doesn't hold itself accountable, and when ranchers, farmers, miners just try to earn a living, they crack down on them. And I think that's what the public needs to understand. Another example is that huge spill in Colorado in the Animas River. The EPA was mucking around. They dislodged a huge spill from a mine. Can you imagine what would happen to a private person if they'd done that? I mean, they'd been hauled away and arrested. And again, they made excuses. And again, I don't think anyone's going to be held accountable. And I think the larger issue is that as the federal government manages the land, it continues to crack down on very minor things that ranchers, miners, loggers try to do to earn a living, while it allows itself great leeway to do whatever it wants, which includes finding ways to squeeze people off the land using the Endangered Species Act and other tools where they're denying grazing allotments or water rights. And that's what's unfair about it.
Absolutely well stated, Fred, and I agree and concur with everything you said. I would like you to elaborate a little bit on this. I honestly think that the environmental groups, be they animal rights groups or if they're Sierra Club members, whatever, along with the federal government, they both seem to be in bed together with deep pockets and a lot of money. How do we go about fighting that issue?
That's a very good question. It's like many issues. You have big government, as you said, in bed with environmental groups and the major media. And that's why I think in some ways things like Burns are a distraction, because the media is going to point to the fact that here's a bunch of guys with guns, and they won't talk about the larger issues. So I think, I don't have a great answer. I think the best answer, though, is those of us who believe in local management of these lands have to educate ourselves with the facts and push back, whether it's doing a show like this, writing letters to the editor, contacting legislators. We need to be effective at messaging, and the messaging shouldn't be about personalities. It should be about the history and the economics of what's happening. Is that a great answer? Probably not. But at this point, we don't have the money that the big environmental groups have, and we don't have the ear of the mainstream media. So we have to push this message out through the Internet, the alternative media, and through sympathetic legislators.
I would totally agree with you on everything you said right there. The media is one thing I'd like to highlight a little bit. I think that there are very few people like myself, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, I'm just being honest, that look at things through a conservative viewpoint and what's good for the community and what's good for people. And the media is extremely left-centered right now, if you will, and very biased. How in the world can we change the bulk of the media?
Well, if I had the answer to that, I would be a very popular person on our side and unpopular. I don't know if there's any one thing we can do. I think you're starting to see things that are happening. For example, fewer people are watching the mainstream media. More people are tuning into alternative cable television shows. They're listening to talk radio. They're reading other sites on the internet which provide alternatives. I think basically the way we undermine the mainstream media is we take away their customer base, and we do that one person at a time. I think we have to stop watching them. The idea that we're going to change their minds with logic, I don't believe that. I think they're firmly committed to their beliefs, which include big government based in Washington, and the notion that we can somehow educate them to our point of view, I think that's a futile effort. I think we have to take away the viewership by simply not engaging them and creating our own alternative media. Now, that's not going to be easy. It is starting to happen. It's not happening probably fast enough because they still set the agenda often. And a good example in this Burns, Oregon issue, they're talking about Bundys and the guys that have guns and what their histories are. They touch briefly on the Hammonds. They talk about how unpopular people are. But did they really talk in any depth about federal management and the mismanagement of lands in the West, which includes increasing catastrophic wildfires, the fact that many small communities are economically depressed because of the reduction in logging and mining? They don't talk about that. So we have to create our own stories about that, push them out there, and maybe, just maybe, if they lose enough viewership and readership, they will say, gee, we've got to take a different approach.
Yeah. I will say this, Fred, and I'd like you to respond to this. This is a concept really that I believe is true, that most today of the American public, they are like sponges. And because of a lack of self-education and really wanting to go out and find the truth for themselves, they just absorb what anything or anybody tells them, and that's the problem with America today. I think whether it's the environmental movement, whether it's Big Brother and the federal government, people are too apathetic and they're not looking at things and trying to find out the truth for themselves. Would you agree with that?
I would largely agree with that, yes. I mean, there's a subset of people that are trying, but you're right, people are behaving like sponges. They don't question the assumptions of the mainstream media. They might think, oh, well, I don't agree with them on a particular issue, but their assumptions are okay. So, yes, I agree, that's a big problem. Americans are not curious enough about the history of this country and what made it successful.
And you mentioned, and I'm really interested in this, about the state of Idaho or any of the western states taking back more control of their lands and management of those lands. I think it's absolutely a meritorious effort. I hope it can be done. I will lend all my support. My dear friend, Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke, has done a lot of research on this. What would you tell my audience they need to know and how to get involved?
Great questions. So there's a couple of ways ultimately this could happen. Congress has the power in the Constitution, Article 4, they can actually turn over the lands. It says that. They can transfer the lands. That will not happen with this administration. I can say that categorically. It will not happen. However, Congress can still put forth the bills and start the debate. So I think it makes sense for you and others to ask the audience to write their congressman, and that can be Labrador. Simpson's probably less receptive. Crapo, Risch, they're all very familiar with the issue of federal lands, and I think the citizens of Idaho have to make it clear what's happening now is not working. The catastrophic fires, the lack of respect from federal officials for local people who are trying to graze and earn a living as loggers and such. For example, timber harvests are down 90% on federal lands in Idaho from the 70s. So folks need to let their congressmen know this is an important issue, and they support legislation that would enable the transferring of land. So I think that's one thing. At the state level, this session, there are likely to be a couple of bills, one of which will deal with the public nuisance issue around the catastrophic wildfires, and maybe another bill will be there around state water rights. Again, I don't have the bill numbers because the legislation hasn't been put forward yet, but it will be, and they should contact their state legislatures and say, we support this legislation, and we support it because federal management isn't working. I do want to add one thing. I think it's really important that your audience hear this, because the opposition, one of the reasons they're effective is they're very good at emotional messaging. And our side tends to want to talk about logic and history and facts. But the opposition will say 2 or 3 things that we have to counter. One of them is the state can't afford to manage these lands. And they've said that often, and then the state will have to sell the lands. There is a great report by the Property Environment Research Center of Montana, www.prc.org, Divided Lands, that shows that states throughout the West manage state-owned lands at a much lower cost than the federal government because they're not paying for a big Washington bureaucracy. So that's one thing we can say is, look, we can manage these lands because we are managing lands, and it's not just in Idaho, it's in Montana, it's in New Mexico, it's in other western states, and we manage them at lower costs and higher quality. So I think we have to make that argument. The other argument that they make is the lands will be sold because of cronyism. And I think what we have to point out is, look, we are not going to transfer these lands to sell them. In fact, we would agree that these lands, should they be transferred, would be managed by the state, and we'd be willing to put that in the state constitution. And I'm saying all this because what the left has done, the environmentalists have done, is they have scared sportsmen, hunters, recreationalists, into the notion that, yes, the federal government isn't great, but if they don't manage the lands, you'll lose access to hunting, fishing, canoeing, whatever, if the state gets hold of the lands. So we have to push back against that with concrete examples.
Absolutely. Fred, we had the moo of the cow. That means that we have a caller calling in. Good morning. Quickly, caller. I'm almost out of time. Go.
Yes, up in central Idaho County, in 2012, there was catastrophic wildfires because of mismanagement of the forest. They lost on the stump millions of dollars worth of potential lumber, and if they would have processed it into lumber, it was close into the billions. Now, this is something that could have done wonders for the county and state of Idaho, county of Idaho, and this is the BS story of it all. I'll hang up.
All right. Fred, quickly respond to that caller, if you would, please.
Well, his point is exactly right.
Yes.
The fact is that the U.S. Forest Service has made it very difficult to next to impossible to cut timber. And they've done that intentionally because environmentalists don't want a timber industry on public lands. And that's why we're facing huge wildfires, because we have all this fuel load build up. And it's exactly why we have to transfer the lands. The notion that this will get better with federal management is not supported by the facts, and you can see that over the last 30 or 40 years. Things are just getting worse.
Fred, real quick, and give me a short answer on this because I am running out of time, but I also wanted to talk to you about climate change and that illustrious newspaper that you referred to and all their segments on global warming. That absolutely enhances the idea that I talked about a moment ago about how people are sponges and they'll buy into anything. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and we should have a very quick rebuttal, which is whether or not you believe that global warming is human caused or the climate change is significant or not, at the end of the day, cutting more trees reduces fire risk. So if you don't believe that global warming is a serious issue, you still want to cut trees to reduce fire risk. And if you do believe global warming is causing more fires because of more growth, at the end of the day, you still want to do more timber harvesting because it reduces the fuel load in forests. They're trying to distract from federal mismanagement by blaming it on global warming, and the they are the environmentalists, the mainstream media, and the left in general.
Fred, you got to promise me something. I got you on the spot right now. You can't say no. You got to come back on the program maybe next week, and we'll continue our conversation.
I would love to do that. This is a very important issue to the people of Idaho, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
All right, Fred Birnbaum, and he is the Vice President of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. God bless you, my friend. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Very interesting individual, and we will have him back in the next couple of days to talk more about that Times News series on global warming, and we'll find out more about what he has to say. Very, very nice man. Time for the weather. Boy, it's past time for the weather. I've been catching up all morning. Can't seem to get in the saddle and ride the same horse. Hey, Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. Changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. From your trailer to the slaughter of the animal, cutting and wrapping, and into the freezer, you can rest assured that you are getting your animal back, and they are very confident you will enjoy the great taste. Custom meat processing at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, and the number to call, 324-7657. Here's Gina with the weather.
Here's your weather forecast for this January 7th as we do move closer to the weekend. And it looks like a chance of afternoon snow showers for today, about a 40% chance. Humidity sitting at about 91%. Winds out of the northwest right around 7 miles an hour. Expect a high of 33. Tonight, low of 26. Tomorrow, morning snow showers are going to continue. Winds out of the west right around 10 miles an hour. High of 30 with an overnight low of 23. Partly cloudy and 29 for Saturday and Sunday. Cloudy and 30. And that's your weather. Have a good one on Death at the Range.
Thank you, Gina. Excellent, excellent job. Thank you. Scarrows Meats, bringing you the weather. Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Whew! I had a busy week, and next week is going to really be a busy one with all the great guests we've got coming on, including Monday, starting with our legislative update at 10:06. Lots of good things coming on the program for this year, 2016. Real quick, let me reiterate about our major sponsor, and we are blessed to have them, and that's, of course, our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations. Now, we're calling for more snow in the forecast, the snow and the muck and the ice and the slush on the highways. Make sure that you're traction ready. Make sure that you get the tires that are going to get you through and safely back home again, okay? They've got all the studded tires. They've got all the snow wheels, the tire chains. They got it all for you at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And along with that, the very, very best in brake service and front end alignment, shocks and struts, and batteries. And they say it's going to get colder again this weekend, so make sure you got a battery that's going to turn that engine over and get you on your way. All of this and more with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. The best. Thank you, all of you, for a great way to start off 2016. Man, we had a lot of great calls, had a lot of great guests this week, and I really, really appreciate it. And I want to remind you that if you're listening to this program, that means you're able to hear, but maybe it might not be as crisp. Well, you'd better check it out by making sure that you can hear everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology for a hearing screening today. Call them at 312-0957. Really good folks. Once again, fire destroyed Jim Coleman's home south of Hazleton. They need our help. They need clothing. They need furniture. They need cash donations. Please call Gene Brown at 731-9018, or you can send cash donations to help the family at the American Legion Post 82, 401 Brooks Avenue in Hazleton. And for updates on what the family may need, call, or I should say check on the Facebook page for the City of Hazleton, and they'll have an update on that, and you can help from that point on. Let's see what else we got. That's it. I just want to ask that you drive carefully out there. I'm looking out my back window of my studio. Woo, it is foggy out there, so please drive carefully. And they are calling for snow flurries for today and tomorrow and through the weekend maybe, and colder temperatures. We will be back here on Monday starting at 8:06 and ride the horse for 3 hours till 11 o'clock right here on KBAR 1230 AM and streaming live all over the world, literally. And that's on ZebBell.com. I just had a contact yesterday from Detroit, Michigan that wants to have us send the Cow Pies and Coffee Cups newsletter. You can get that too. Go to ZebBell.com, click it on, leave us your address. We'll make sure that we get it to you. Until Monday, God bless you and your family, and remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be. Take it away. We'll see you Monday.